I have listened very carefully, and I'm just about ready to run out of here feeling, I can bring this to my sleepy street, where the people sometimes listen to me, but only when I talk about small things. And I just wanted to say that I felt that when I read especially the wonderful outline on pipelines, that I almost became a convert to oil industry. But I still have a problem. I still feel, even though you did outline how reasonable it can be and how rational it can be and how responsible, I still did not hear you talking about water. I didn't hear that dirty verb fracking that starts with an F. And I would like to know if it sounds so good to have Canada all kind of connected with these pipelines, is that a safe future for the future? And I didn't hear either anybody make a reference to David Scheenberg and his great concerns about the water supply. And I would like an answer so that I can run in a more biased way.
Okay, well, I just happen to know a little bit about fracking. I spent a lot of time on those operations, and I can tell you that most of the time the fracking operations go well, but there's always going to be 1%, 2%, 0.5% of jobs on wells that don't go well, where the cement sheath around the casing, the drill casing, cracks or doesn't provide a good seal, and every once in a while you will get contamination from the producing formations up into aquifers and shallow water that people rely on. But it doesn't happen all the time. Most of the time everything goes well. But there are times when it does cause a problem, and those get a lot of publicity. You know, you've got human beings doing things and things go wrong, and sometimes people don't know exactly what they're doing, and so things do go wrong. There's a lot of concern about fracking. I think it's a little overstated, but like I said, when things go wrong, they get a lot of publicity. It's something that we have to watch out for, and but you know, if you're living on a ranch and you start getting natural gas out the hose on your kitchen sink, you get very concerned, and it does happen. I think there's great resources that can be obtained from fracking, very economic resources, and it's an operation that we have to pay greater attention to and do a better job at. I think it's wrong to say you want to stop all fracking. There's just too much economic benefit for everybody, hopefully, from those kinds of operations. But you know, you're right to express a concern about water. There's probably nothing more important than, maybe aside from clean air, is having clean water for everybody. So.
I went first last time.
Again, the position that the union would be taking is that in absence of legislation, the industry will do the least that they have to. Yeah. There are some players that will do that little extra to try to gain the confidence of the people and to avoid the protests at their gates. But unless you regulate it, it's really not going to happen. And that's what needs to happen. And so, in the last few years, the Alberta government, in response to the people of Alberta talking about water, has started to apply pressure on industry to do things differently around water. And lo and behold, over the last 2 years, you know, the draw off the Athabasca River has dropped. They've invested millions of dollars in water treatment plants to recycle their water and draw less from. That's all it takes. That's all it takes is for the government to stand up for the people of Alberta and say, if you're going to play in our backyard, then you have to play by the rules. And that's what it takes. Fracking will be the same example. Without regulation, fracking is going to be terrible. It'll end up in some disasters that will be highlighted and the people will turn on it, and the people will do it like they turn on the oil sands or any other item that seems to be bad. But those things don't need to happen if our governments legislate and regulate those industries properly. We can't close our eyes and think that today we will not be producing oil. Our society, our world is dependent on it. We have to transition it. There's no question that we have to transition it, and we're going to transition it. But it won't happen overnight. I suggest to you that in the next 20 years, we're going to see a world that's quite a bit different. But we have to transition. We have to transition our economies. We have to transition our jobs, our dependencies, our values. But we're going to get there. But it's the people that are going to make that transition. People like you that will stand up and say, enough is enough. We need to protect our water. We need to protect our resources. We need to protect our planet. And the governments will respond. There's no question. Especially if you have New Democrats in power.
Well, just briefly, what we've seen is an increasing divide on the social license for these projects. And I mentioned earlier about the elimination of environmental assessments, elimination of public consultation, and look at regulation around fracking. The fact, as Tom Mulcair has said, we need to know what ingredients are used in fracking. And the federal government does not, in any way, shape, or form, actually compel companies to allow the public to know what ingredients are being used. We don't have an adequate environmental evaluation system. And now, when you look at the statistics, whether we're talking about railway safety or pipeline safety, we're seeing a steady increase in the number of spills. So the public confidence has been completely eroded by irresponsible actions. And as my colleagues have just said, what we need is a government, a federal government, that's willing to show leadership and provide a kind of tough environmental regulation, whether we're talking about fracking or pipelines that Canadians can have confidence in. And David Schindler should be advising the federal government on water issues.